Hello and welcome to the Smart Women in Business vlog and podcast. Today I'm talking to Ilana Kosakiewicz, one of Australia's leading kinesiologists, energy coaches and yoga and meditations teachers. Ilana is a whole food lover and entrepreneur with a past life spent working in the corporate world as a CPA accountant, never picked that. Ilana's own health journey with chronic fatigue and autoimmune disease taught her that slowing down, finding moments of stillness, living in the now, and listening to your body's inner wisdom and intuition are not just important, they are essential. Originally from Gippsland, Ilana is passionate about teaching women to live in alignment with their innate cyclical energy, menstrual cycle, and the moon. She helps women shift their energy and take back their inner power and self-care rights by making themselves the number one priority. Welcome, Ilana. Yay!
Yay! Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
It's very exciting to have you here. I've known Ilana from around the traps on the interwebs for a little while, so it's a real pleasure. I absolutely love kinesiology, so I'm excited to talk to you about that, your total zone of genius. But tell me about your business journey, because I never knew you were a CPA and how you got to where you are right now.
Yeah, so obviously in high school, what are you going to be? I don't know.
When you grow up.
I had no bloody idea what I wanted to do in high school, but I love numbers and I love reconciling things, and I still do. I still love zero. I still love doing my accounting side of my business. That'll probably never change. It just wasn't what I was passionate about. And I was very, very good in the corporate, I was great at connecting people in corporate and getting processes and systems in place, but it still really wasn't what my heart wanted. So high school, I was like, all right, let's do accounting. I ended up getting a traineeship actually in the energy sector. I worked for Loy Power for 12 years.
Which is in Gippsland.
Yes,
you and I. Gippsland. I'm not from Gippsland. I'm from Melbourne, where you are now, but I now live in Gippsland.
Yeah, so and I did my degree part-time. So I worked full-time and did my degree part-time. So I studied for 9-10 years, did my CPA, AGL brought Loy out, and I was like, you know what, I want to move to the city. I was single. I wanted to just live a little.
Mingle.
Yeah, do all those things. I also did dancing as a child. I did a lot of ballet and competitions and Stedfords and all those things that you do in childhood. And I was like, I want to get back into dancing. So that was another driver of moving to Melbourne, was I got into Latin dancing.
Woo.
Yeah, and you can't do dancing for adults in Gippsland. That's one downside of living in the country, is there's not that accessibility to some of these lifestyle things that I was craving. So I moved to the big smoke, started working for AGL, and I had this sore ankle that I couldn't heal. I'd tried physios and different doctors and all these things. And a friend said to me, go and see this kinesiologist. He is a kinesiologist. Go and see this chiropractor. He's actually a chiropractor, and he did applied kinesiology. I think he might be able to help you, because they wanted to sort of, with my ankle, give me surgery. And I was like, no, I don't want to do that.
Anything but that.
Yeah, because I was, I've had cortisone injections, nothing was working. Anyway, I saw this chiropractor. He did this applied kinesiology muscle testing thing,
which just feels like magic. The first time you go,
what are they doing?
What are they doing?
He'd give me a few supplements and things as well, and my ankle got better. And I was like, mind blowing, what the hell just happened?
It's bizarre.
Yeah.
When
and then
it first happens.
Obviously he dealt more with the physical aspect of the body. Applied kinesiology, if you go see a chiropractor, they quite often is just the more physical. They don't usually get into the emotions or the spiritual side. So he's like, I think you should go and see. He had in his clinic a lady who did more the holistic everything as well. And so I went and saw her, and again, whoa, how did she know about that stuff that happened to me back when I was a child, or this and that? I don't know this person. Anyway, I got curious and started studying. I was working full time. I was probably very burnt out, but I was a go-go person. I didn't like to stop, dancing too much, socializing too much, working too much, but my body was crashing. And so I started studying kinesiology, and then within 3 months, chronic fatigue had hit him completely. No. It's like the universe said, you can't study this stuff. Start learning all this stuff about the body and energy and looking after yourself, and you're doing the complete. Here, go and sort your life out.
Don't. I mean, I love the universe when it does that sort of stuff, but I'm like, you don't have to prove it to me so strongly.
It was a lesson I had to learn. And so I started studying kinesiology, and I got sick with chronic fatigue. I had 12 months off work because it was actually really severe, and I didn't realize I was as bad as I was. Turns out I also had Lyme's disease, which in Australia isn't really recognized.
Yep.
And so I kind of had a year and a half where I really just sort of looked after me, was studying still my kinesiology. And then I created my kinesiology business.
Yay.
And it just went from there. So 2017, I think it was, where I sort of, after I finished studying, I was like, because sometimes you go into studying a holistic modality and you're like, is it just to study it, or is it actually to do more? And I was like, no, I actually want to help people. And so that was my journey. And then I started seeing some clients in Gippsland, which I still do, because there, at the time, 4 or 5 years ago, whatever it was, there wasn't that many practitioners down there. There's a few more now, which is lovely. And I was living in North Melbourne, so I started in North Melbourne. Now I'm Bayside in Melbourne, and I still go to Gippsland. Was going every month. I'm kind of changing it to almost every 8 to 10 weeks, just because kinesiology isn't an easy modality either to
it's not very mobile.
If you can see all this lovely stuff behind me, I have to pack a lot of it into suitcases. And it's a lot of energy and effort. But because of COVID, and I'd already started doing this before COVID, I actually work online as well, because energy is universal.
It is.
You do not have to have a physical body in front of you in order to heal or shift the energy or come back to equilibrium or harmony. You can do it over the lovely web,
over the internet.
That was kind of my business journey, and kind of got me to where I am right now. And yes, now I do see children, and I do work with some men as well, but predominantly working with women around taking care of themselves, listening to their inner intuition, prioritizing self-care, because literally my burnout story was putting everyone else and work first for 30 years, because I hit rock bottom at age 30. And really starting to work with the energy of the menstrual cycle and the moon. More the moon, obviously, if you're not bleeding anymore, but they kind of go hand in hand a little bit. So because a lot of women, we're not taught how to basically create businesses or live in alignment with this inner wisdom that we have. And this is why a lot of women get burnt out, because every week of our cycle is different. And we don't have a 24-hour energy cycle. It's 29 or whatever your menstrual cycle, energy cycle. It's not the same every day like men.
No.
But our society and our businesses are quite often built on this concept of 24 hours, and that we should be the same every single day. But we're not.
No, we're not. I say to my husband, must be really nice to wake up one mood every day, all the time. And he goes, yeah.
It's only
Is
their
that not how it works for
testosterone,
you?
really. No, they've got testosterone. Like, they do have obviously a little bit of estrogen.
Yeah.
But they really just have testosterone rises like the sun, and it goes down like the sun.
Yeah.
We don't do that.
No, we don't. People go, well, like, why are you so tired today? I don't know, mate. I just am. And it can be
day 25 of my cycle, and I'm about to bleed. That's probably the answer.
I'm feeling quite tired. Leave me alone, It's like, I always know when my period's coming, because the day before, because my cycle's very irregular, the day before, I always want to divorce my husband, like 100% of the time, every time. And I want to go and live in my cave alone just for that day.
Yeah, and I get a lot of women, and I teach this, is that week before is our autumn phase, and it is the unraveling shedding of the things that aren't serving us. And quite often it's your partner or your husband. Like I say to the women that are in my membership at the moment, don't worry if the week before your cycle or a couple of days before you bleed, you want a divorce. And it happens every single month.
Every single month. I love him to pieces. And then it's all over and then I'm fine again.
Yeah, because it's literally just that hormonal shift.
It's so weird. But it's not something that we're taught. It's not something that we're even familiar with, most women. We just push, and that's why we get into that burnout. Yeah,
because as I was saying, every single week we have a summer, that's mid-cycle. Then we have the autumn, which is the week before we bleed. We have winter, which is the bleeding week, that's menstrual week. And then the spring is the week when we're coming out of it, And yet you start to have this. So you have 2 yin feminine weeks and 2 yang masculine weeks. So your spring and your summer is, when you should be posting on social media, for instance, or creating an event.
Or scheduling your social media.
or not. We're not doing it at all. But when we work in alignment with what our energy is doing and where we are in our business, boy, can we be really efficient. And then knowing that, maybe the PMS week, I'm kind of finishing up projects and allowing ourselves to just, complete projects and tasks that haven't happened, or read that blog, or go to bed a little bit earlier. And then when we're bleeding, we kind of perhaps not completely, I actually have a day or two that I don't work around my cycle as much as I can, because mine isn't like a bang on 28 days, unfortunately. But the first 2 days of your bleed, we should be really compassionate. Like if you don't feel like doing something,
don't do it.
Do it in summer and spring.
Hey guys, you have the energy to
push through.
Permission granted.
Yeah. So it's really important, especially as women in business. And if you are a mother, and I'm going to be actually writing a program for teens around this work, is that we weren't taught from a young age that we do bleed. Our menstrual cycle, every week of our cycle is a different energy, and that we should be doing different things, or not being so hard on ourselves, because we are our own worst critics.
100%. Yep, we are. Shocking. And
then quite often, if we're not thriving in our business, it could be because you have this blockage around your energy flow. And a lot of women who come and see me quite often, they are like race horses. They're just, and it's like, you can't thrive in your business if all you're ever doing is not taking care of yourself, not listening to your inner wisdom. And that back pain is actually because you don't have support structures that you're needing to thrive. Because when we have high vibe energy and we're feeling energized and things are flowing, that's when we create things. Because everything in life is a source of energy and a frequency and a vibration. But if we're always feeling tired or pushing or feeling stressed, then we're blocking that new flow of income or new clients or whatever it is that you're doing in your business. So it's really interesting when we sort of work with this concept of energy.
It is. It's interesting that you say that, because I noticed that I had peaks and troughs in my energy, and I usually associate it with the moon.
Yeah.
I know that a couple of days before the full moon, everything gets a bit hinky, and then it's like a big release when the full moon happens, and I'm like all cool and on track again. But I'd never associated it with my menstrual cycle. Why? Don't know. Because it's not something we talk about.
Yeah, and these topics are topics that we, traditionally we're like the bread and butter of, the tribe or the community. But as Western society, we've lost a lot of that knowledge. And it's slowly starting to come back now, because, we're moving into age of Aquarius, like, like moving more into the divine feminine, because really we do need to honor the energy of the moon. And so, the moon and the menstrual cycle are quite often linked. It depends, because obviously not everyone bleeds on the full moon or the new moon. It shifts and changes.
And the moon cycle is not exactly 28 days.
No. it's roughly a 29-ish.
Yeah, as I've learned
And the same with your menstrual cycle. Some women bleed every 25 or 26 days, and some is every 35 days. And then some people are irregular, which obviously then there's other things going on that need to be dealt with, because our menstrual cycle is really tells us our health as women. So if you're not bleeding or it's irregular, then that's like a signal your body is telling you that something's not quite right too. But yeah, so the moon obviously has a very similar concept. It has that sort of autumn, summer, spring and winter, but it depends obviously where the moon is and where you're bleeding as how that correlates. So it's really, really interesting. And then if you're not bleeding, you follow the moon as if it was your menstrual cycle. So new moon is like your bleeding week. So it's like your winter phase. And then full moon is actually when you quite often you can have more energy, but for some people it can be the opposite. It's more like your ovulation phase. But every moon also is linked with a different zodiac. And if the planets are changing, like we've just come out of Mercury retrograde, that can all play skew.
We have no retrogrades at the moment. Yay!
No, we don't. Thank goodness.
9 weeks or something.
Yeah. Because that can play havoc with women's, because we're yin, linked with the moon. Moon is yin. So that's why we quite often feel there's shifts and changes with the energy of the moon. Plus, the first calendar was invented for the moon, for us bleeding, which is really cool too. So I'm really passionate about teaching women these sort of old, traditional, ancient, I suppose, rituals or knowledge that we just lost.
Yeah, just because of the medicalization of everything to do with the body, and I read a thing the other day that was like, why were we not listening to the witches? Why were we burning them? Why were we not burning the people that burned the witches? Because they were the holders of the knowledge and the ancient wisdom. And because of this overrun of power, masculine power, no offense to the men in my life, but because of the overrun of masculine power, we lost all that. And if we stayed living in this beautiful feminine energy, the world would look so different now.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's like the beautiful quote, you give men knowledge, they keep it, and you give it to women and, they change the world.
Yeah. oh dear. But I said to my daughter, Indigo, who's 10, so just on the cusp of all of this big change in her life, you and her brother, you are the generation that will change the world.
Yeah.
I have faith now that it's going to change now. So, right. So since the beginning of your kinesiology business, how has it evolved? So obviously you're focusing on menstrual cycles and that. How has your business evolved, and what are the signs to you that it was to change over the last 4 or 5 years?
Yeah. So obviously I started, like we heard everything in business, like we start one thing and then we try it, didn't work, does work, don't really love it, want it,
Yeah.
I started just with kinesiology sessions, and if you don't know what kinesiology is, because a lot of people still have no idea what kinesiology is, it's basically muscle testing. So for those of you, tapping into your inner blueprint, your inner DNA, because everything you have ever done, said, your body remembers. And so quite often what will happen if you have an upset stomach, for instance, or you have an overwhelmed sense of anxiety all the time, or any type of symptom or sign, I basically tap into your body and say, okay, what's going on? What is it that we need to bring this body back into harmony? Because the body always wants to find this equilibrium, this balance. It always wants us to be calm and relaxed and healthy. And when it's out of balance, it needs some guidance. And sometimes we need to go back in the past and heal some things, or sometimes it's something in the present. Sometimes it's related to meridian or a chakra. Sometimes you have to let go of something or have a conversation with your boss. It really, the world is your oyster when it comes to whatever it is that needs balancing. But your body basically is the container that's going to tell us And then I use kinesiology to find out what the root cause is and the answer. So I started off just with my one-to-one clients, working probably still predominantly with women and children, with whatever they would come to me with, because kinesiology can be used for almost absolutely anything. So I didn't really have a niche when I started. And even now, I probably, while I do work a lot with women and their self-care, quite often women come to me probably because they're burnt out and anxious, or their menstrual cycle has gone haywire, or their health has gone haywire, because that's quite often you end up with people who have had a similar journey to you.
Yeah.
Like attracts like. That's just how the world, that's just how energy works.
When you describe your target audience, invariably you're describing yourself, by the way.
Often.
Because we want to help people like ourselves. We have an empathy.
Yeah. You know, people like who couldn't sleep when, you know, like, because I had with my chronic fatigue, you know, I went through all this stuff where I wasn't sleeping, and then I had parasites that were really bad. I've had digestive issues that were really, really bad, and allergies. I had them as a kid, really bad, you know, food sensitivity. So, you know, then my menstrual cycle went haywire for a few years when I went off the pill and was sick. So like, yeah, I just get this influx, you get these clients that come to you. So starting with one-to-ones, and then I personally was doing restorative yoga as part of my own healing process. And I just fell in love with it, yin and restorative yoga and yoga nidra meditation. So that's what happened next. I went and became a yoga teacher.
Yay!
And learned did meditation training and learned about yoga nidra, because sometimes, while kinesiology is great, we still need to do the self-care aspect outside of our sessions. And so this was something that I could give to my clients, whether I was teaching or whether it was a weekly class. So it did start off with like weekly classes and teaching in yoga studios, which then went to like workshops and then retreats. And now I have my Aligned Living membership, which is kind of encompassing a lot of everything.
All the things, all the modalities.
Weekly online classes, rest and restore classes, and yoga nidra and meditation. There's women's circles, there's moon circles. I give a lot of information about the menstrual cycle and aligning it, and how you can work more in harmony with the seasons and the moon, and then energy tips and all and above. So that's kind of my journey. You kind of get one thing, start one thing, and then it leads to something else, and then leads to something else. So it's been a really beautiful, just sort of synchronizing flow, I think, for me, a natural transition from just one-to-ones to, you know, workshops and retreats, and now into my membership. So that's
the freedom of being working for yourself, isn't it?
Yeah, well, you do have the freedom to be like, I love this and I love that, and I'm just going to sort of create a mix
together.
Yeah, and because you get to a point with one-to-ones where you can only see so many people. And so I really started my membership this year because I don't have to be just in Gippsland or just in Melbourne. And the same with my online sessions, like it's now universal.
Yeah.
If you love what I do and it's your thing, then you can access me anywhere.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting because I've spoken to you previously about my daughter's, my kids' I have a chronic digestive condition. And a kinesiologist was the first person who ever picked it. Indigo was 4 weeks old, and we call him the wizard, but anyway, he put his hands on Indigo and said, this child has a digestive problem. And we're like, whatever, crazy old Bernie. Turns out he was right. So I'm like, I think I need Ilana in my life because none of the kinesiologists down here deal with digestive. So it's really interesting now. I think this 2020, the year that has forced a lot of us to look online for things that we would traditionally go, oh, I have to see this person in person. And because, as you say, energy is universal, it's forced a lot of businesses to evolve online. And it's great because people like me who are rural, I don't have to drive 3 hours to come and see you now. So that's amazing. Yeah.
And, like last night, we actually had our monthly women's circle. And a lot of them were saying, I'm so grateful. I had people in Inverloch And, you know, there's one in the US and, you know, like, they're like, I'm so like, COVID, obviously, you know, it wasn't pleasant for a lot of us, but there's a lot of good that came out of it where we can connect regardless of where we are.
Like, I mean, I'm used to working online, but it really has opened up a lot more clients to being, okay, you know, I can do Zoom, I can work out the tech, because tech can be a real barrier to people. And they realize that they can form genuine human connections through video and through Zoom and through having the conversations with people. So, and you can be, you know, I've done joint meditations on a Zoom. Slightly weird the first time you do them, but you get used to just sitting there and almost feeling vulnerable, I think, when you meditate, because it is such an inner thing that I think everyone's in their own space, that it doesn't matter. You know, you don't feel self-conscious after a little while.
Yeah. And I mean, it just depends on the facilitator sometimes. And the beauty with Zoom or whatever, you know, tech device you're using for joint classes is you can turn your camera
off. Turn off video. I never remember to do that. I'm just sitting there with my eyes closed, possibly drooling. So obviously your energy demands in your work are quite high, and then you've had a chronic illness. And so how do you manage your life as an entrepreneur and the demands of that?
Yeah, well, obviously I've learned through my own past. And, you know, it's sometimes it's interesting, like you go through a chronic fatigue episode or an illness episode or a burnout or whatever it is that happens, because everyone's journey is a bit different.
Yeah.
But it's really easy to eventually sort of, oh, I'm getting to that place again. But for me, I start my day giving to me. Like, and as women, because a lot of women are mums or wives, you know, or they're looking after sick parents, you know, we're nurturers, we're givers. Give to you first. Even if it means getting up half an hour earlier, which some of you might cringe. I'm a morning person, so it doesn't bother me at all. And if you're not a morning person, maybe it's like, you know, last thing you do at nighttime. But whatever it is, I found is just find some time in your day, make it that non-negotiable and give to yourself. And it doesn't have to be a lot of time. So mine is usually, I do like a 10-minute meditation, or I'm just journaling a few things like gratitude, because it's just one thing I found that it fills my cup.
Yeah. And
then I quite often walk in the morning, because not only does, I'm looking out the window while I'm doing this, the light first thing in the morning helps to get your circadian rhythms going.
Yeah.
So if you have issues with sleeping or getting up in the morning, get outside, because it will naturally get your cortisol levels going, that wakes you up. So that's a tip as well. So I find if I walk in the morning, I am prone also to anxiety at times. It just keeps that at bay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then in the afternoon, I really feel the dip. So our energy, our cortisol levels slowly rise to lunchtime. Then we have the dip where most people want a coffee or sugar.
Chocolate.
Yep, which is never a great thing for our blood sugar. And especially if you have cycle issues. And then it sort of comes up and then obviously down again before we go to bed. So I quite often in that afternoon between sort of 2:30 and 4, I might do a meditation in that time. So a 20-minute yoga nidra quite often, or a half an hour yoga nidra, or read a book, or do a bit of a yoga session. I literally almost block out an hour, and I try not to see clients. It doesn't always happen. I usually do like morning, have a longer lunch break, and then some in the afternoon and evening. So it's basically, I've made my self-care as part of my business lifestyle, because otherwise I find you do burn that candle really quickly. And a lot of women who often come and work with me, whether it's their corporate job or whether it's their own business, or even a mum, there's just not enough of that them time.
No, I can testify to that.
And it doesn't have to be like, people are like, well, I don't have time. It doesn't have to be a lot of time. You know, that 20-minute, that pause power can be just enough to give you what you need to make dinner or, you know, for the clients or whatever it is. Because, yeah, we end up being the ones who come last.
Always. And it's interesting because you say that it dips around 2:30. That's when I leave for school pickup. But my kids have been on the school bus. So I'm suddenly here at 2:30 and I go, I'm tired now. So I will do a meditation. Normally I start my day at, you know, with a meditation, just short one. And then if I start to feel that dip at 2:30-ish, I'll do another meditation and that'll give me the pickup. But it's weird how you think it would make you more tired, but it does the opposite. I'm like, hungry, meditate. Tired, meditate. Cranky, meditate.
And if meditation isn't your jam, or you're not into, or you think you have to quiet your mind, which is not what my meditation is, maybe doing a guided meditation. And the reason I mainly teach Yoga Nidra is because it is a sleep-based meditation, which takes you into those deep sort of REM sleep states, which is like a 3-hour nap in 30 minutes.
Yeah, it's awesome.
But if that's not your jam, you know, maybe you just go for a gentle stroll out. It's basically just taking a self-care rest break from work to refuel. So it really doesn't matter what it is. It's and not eating chocolate or having coffee, because your body won't thank you for that in the long run.
I can't do coffee after midday. Occasionally I have dark chocolate with almonds, which I think is
in
my brain is a health food.
I mean, if it's a daily thing, then maybe not. No. But I can't drink coffee. That's how sensitive I am. Yeah, it makes me
I did get to
crazy.
That point. Then I had children, and it just amped up that fatigue. So I always just have the one coffee a day. But yeah, that's it for caffeine for me, because I'm like, don't sleep. So what does a great day in the office look like for you? You've talked about how you integrate self-care, but you know, favorite ways to work and things.
So it was probably teaching like a yoga class or a meditation or a workshop for my members in my membership. You probably can tell by my face if you're watching the video, but I'm really passionate about that. So that just really lights me up. And then obviously seeing some one-to-one clients. Obviously my self-care will be in there too. And then just reading something new. I love learning. As I was always, not necessarily as a child, had my nose in a book, but I just love learning new things, like new ways of living. I'm a big foodie. Like I love trying new recipes, finding new efficient ways to do things, just health, well-being, mindset, spiritual, like everything. I love learning. So probably taking an hour, you know, half an hour to maybe read something as well. So that's kind of probably my great day.
Yay!
Studio.
I'm here. I'm doing my thing. It's funny how before I worked for myself, I would be like, oh, Sunday, I don't want to work. Oh, so stressed. And now I'm like, yay, work! I get to work. Yay!
Because it becomes your part. Well, and it can be at our detriment. And this is another thing. It can be. Because we love what we like. I've had to create very healthy boundaries. And this is probably, you're probably very similar, because you do love what you do, that, I'll just work this Sunday, or I'll just do this on the Saturday.
Just a couple of hours. Yeah. And your family don't see you all day because you're like, what's I'm all right. No, I'm all right. And they're like, can we do something? Yeah. Boundaries are key.
Yes.
Absolutely key. And it's also, that's about managing expectations in a business as well, because if you're responding to people's emails on Sundays, they're like, hey, she's in the office. I might just give her a ring, flick her a text, and then that creep. And that's when the burnout happens.
Yeah, absolutely.
When it starts getting to all the life.
Yeah, and I've had to kind of learn that the hard way, because sometimes I'm like, just email me. You know, like with my clients, if you ever got any issues, just email me or just Facebook message me. And then the next thing I know, you are just stupid hours of the day. Boundaries, big one. Boundaries. And as women, I feel like we need to be tougher on them, even more so, because we quite often have the burden of not only our businesses or our careers, we have it at home. which is why the self-care I always put in my day, because otherwise it would never happen.
I was listening to a podcast that was not related to women necessarily. Tyson, I can't remember, but he wrote Sand Talk anyway, and I want to read this book. He's an Aboriginal guy, and he's telling all these stories anyway, and he was talking about how frustrating he finds it that school is now in home, and that was like the last place that women had where they could relax, and it was their sanctuary. And he's like, now we've got school there, we've got work there, and it's like it's just adding these burdens onto women in what was their sort of their one place where they could be like, oh. And now it's like I've got to turn up on Zoom. But it's really interesting to hear it from a man's perspective. Anyway, completely off tangent.
I love that.
It was on Big Ideas with Paul Barclay on Radio National. It'll be on their podcast with Tyson. I can't remember his name. Sand Talk. Sand Talk. Yes, Sand Talk. I keep saying sand lines because I keep getting song lines and Sand Talk mixed up. Anyway, very interesting man. Very funny. So what tools do you use in your business to help you be productive?
Well, you probably can guess one of them.
Let me think. Zoom?
Well, if we're talking actual business tools, yes, yeah. I obviously use Zoom.
Zoom is life.
Obviously, I'm a planner. If it's not on my to-do list, I'm a write everything down person.
Me too.
I just, that really keeps me on track. My business is structured in alignment with my menstrual cycle. That's probably my biggest productivity, is I really give myself permission to not push myself a couple of days before my period and probably the first 4 days of my bleed. And that has worked so well for my energy. Like, I feel like if I don't do that, then I do struggle throughout the rest of that month. And when I do give myself that breathing space, I have so much more energy during the month. It's really miraculous. So that's probably a tool as well. So planning, to-do lists, and recently I have a VA.
Yay.
I haven't given her as much as I would like to yet, especially help with my Facebook groups, because I have a group for my membership and then I have a free group as well, and then my podcast. So just helping with some of the editing and uploading and those kinds of things. But you do get to a point where you realize you can't be a solopreneur anymore. And I think you are probably very similar.
We've had that conversation. Yes, delegation needs to be done.
And it's really hard for me because I'm a bit of a control freak.
A little bit. I am too. And I'm like, I want everything done a certain way, but it's about expectations, isn't it?
Yeah. So they're probably my biggest productivity tools is, just, I don't think if you don't plan, you kind of just feel like you're going everywhere. Like I have a day for admin and social media and writing newsletters and those kinds of things, and then my client day. So I have days for things, and I find that if I just do them when they're supposed to be done, then I don't have anything to worry about.
Yeah,
plans obviously don't always go to plan.
No,
but having some kind of structure because I did when I first started. I just was doing things, and it wasn't working. So.
And I find you've got to be in the headspace for stuff. Like I block out Mondays and Fridays. Mondays I'm always a bit tired. Not that I do anything on weekends.
Maybe you've had the kids.
But I've got kids, And then Fridays I like to be really creative. Fridays is like peak creativity. And then I do client work. Like I'll do client work on Monday and Friday, but I don't do podcasts and I don't do one-to-ones and I don't do all the other things that I need to do in my business involving Zoom. I only do them Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And I found that's really those boundaries, and knowing that I've got a day either end where I'm not going to be right in and out of meetings. Like today I'm in meetings for 3-4 hours on Zoom, and I'm like, and you've got to be like really focused.
Yeah.
So and you got to preserve your energy.
Absolutely. And I am actually shifting up I was doing clients like Tuesdays, Fridays, and some Saturday mornings and some Thursday afternoons. Whereas from April, Thursday, Fridays, and Tuesday, Saturday mornings are my client days, because I need it. Because I now do have a podcast and I have the membership, like I have to, that all has to be slotted in somewhere too. Mm-hmm. And I'm more like, these are like admin sort of, that sort of work, and because it's a different energy than my client work, and you would probably find it similar. You know, I'm using a different type of energy. So yeah, it's, I suppose, knowing how you work and what energy needs what, and then slotting that into your weeks, and then for me also into my menstrual cycle, and for some of you maybe the moon.
Well, maybe it wasn't the moon all along. But it's interesting that you used the word compassion earlier, and I think when we work for ourselves, we do have a tendency to push and push and push. And you do need to be kind to yourself. You do need to show yourself kindness and compassion. And self-care isn't just, you know, bubble baths and getting a massage. It is about going, all right, just go easy on yourself in terms of your energy, and work out ways to conserve your energy, because it's all coming from you. And we need to be kind to ourselves, and we're often not.
Yeah, and a lot of women don't understand the difference between self-maintenance and self-care.
I don't do any self-maintenance.
Well, self-maintenance can be things like exercise and eating healthy, and that can take up a lot of energy, when self-care is really about nourishing what your soul needs.
I do self-maintenance then.
Exactly. Like the self-care is the compassion, maybe a bubble bath, you know, maybe just an afternoon to just breathe.
Or read a book.
Yeah, like it's the simple,
without
small
guilt.
Yeah, the simple, small, soul nourishing things. That's really self-care.
Yeah.
We've got confused because the word gets thrown out all the time. A lot of what we're doing is self-maintenance, which takes energy. We need the things that are going to fuel it.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is, I mean, so many women carry a lot of guilt, especially mums. Mum guilt is a constant, unrelenting thing. So, and I think that, because occasionally I'm just take Monday off, and I can never do it, because I'm always like, I should be doing that, and that guilt. So maybe I'll take Mondays is public holiday.
I was going to say, start, you know, and even if you just start small, I quite often say with my clients, all right, so this is the overall goal, taking a Monday off, you know, just pop one in once a month. Like obviously it wouldn't happen every Monday, but, you know, and then commit to it.
And don't feel guilty.
Do it.
When you're doing whatever you want to do.
Because that will refuel you. And once you're refueled, you'll be so interested how this flows on into your business. When you have that day off, oh my God, you've just got a new client email, or oh my God, someone just sent you a proposal, or you got a podcast interview. Just things just happen when you look after yourself. And women are so amazed that when I have that power pause, quite often that is what I needed in order for everything else to just start to flow. But it's the one thing we find the hardest to do.
It is so hard. So one of the things, this is another energetic question, but one of the things that affects every entrepreneur I know, and one of the questions I always ask is, what are your methods to overcome imposter syndrome and the bad days in business? Because we all have them, but we just don't see them on Instagram.
Yeah, we do have bad days. I had one yesterday.
Oh, damn. Oh yeah, you are unwell.
Oh, well, I haven't been well either, but and quite often my imposter days happen the week before I bleed or the week I do bleed, because that's just what happens with their emotions. They're quite often tied in. But I think for me, I just have to come back to my center. I have to just ground, because when imposter quite often comes up for me more also with this sense of feeling that maybe I haven't given enough, or I'm comparing.
Yeah, comparing's always for me the symptom.
And so I usually just have to kind of stop my thought process. So, which can be how much of what I'm telling myself is true. Which can be really hard if you don't have the awareness of your inner critic, your inner voice. But I would say start really questioning how true are the things you're telling yourself. And usually I'm like, delete, 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 or whoa, stop it. Like I have to literally have a moment of, it's okay. This isn't necessarily real.
Isn't it weird? The thoughts in your head are actually not real.
Yes. We're not our thoughts.
No.
You know, and we're not really our feelings. They're just energy demanding motion. They just want to be felt and released, which quite often happens with bad days. We're feeling anxious or feeling a sense of imposter or overwhelmed or guilt or grief or whatever it is. You know, just take a moment to sit in that, because once you sit in it for 5 or 10 minutes or be with the feeling, and sometimes it's a physical sensation, maybe constricted throat or butterflies in belly or tight chest. Once you breathe and sort of are with it, it usually will just go, okay.
See you then. Bye.
You know what it's about. So, yeah, and bad days, I just come back to that compassion again. I go, you know what? Let's just figure out what is an absolute has to be today. And I just let the other things go, because we do have bad days.
We do.
Yesterday I was supposed to do a whole, like, I'm moving email systems and I was going to be doing all of that sort of jam. And I went, I can't do that today. I don't have the energy. I'm not feeling myself. I'm going to do all these other little things that I can do with my eyes closed that still needed to be done this week. And then I let it go.
Yeah. And then that's it.
Went on the couch and in the afternoon and, you know, watched an episode of Netflix and just sometimes that's what we actually need to do.
Yeah, we do.
Instead, we quite often, you know, strive through, and the guilt or the mindset and the emotions are worse than just letting, you know.
That's a difficult thing to do. Surrender.
It is really hard. It's surrendering to the fact that, oh, I feel shit. Oh,
you're allowed to say shit on my podcast.
I feel crappy today. I'm anxious. You know, I may be comparing myself. Maybe I'm feeling like an imposter. That's okay.
It's fine.
Today I'm going to just be with it. And you know what? Tomorrow's a new day.
Tomorrow you'll feel heaps better if you go and lie on the couch and watch Firefly Lane for a couple of hours.
Or, you know, just change up. Remember, we all have choices each and every day. We have that permission to change up our to-do list, or that permission. And we run our own businesses for a reason.
Exactly.
We run our businesses for these days, and yet it's the hardest thing that we find to do. No
guilt. Just do it.
Yeah.
As long as you're showing up when you need to show up, let it go.
And it's interesting. It's probably also, you know, just coming back to that why and that mission. Like, I'm not an imposter because I'm here to serve your clients, you know, or, you know, and, you know, even if you have a product-based business, you know, your products serve your clients or whatever it is that you do. You're just sharing your gifts. So that's what you have to remember.
It's interesting, isn't it? So you obviously have your membership. How do you maintain your sense of community? This is especially important, I think, at the moment, post 2020, when we couldn't do meetups and networking and things. Not that I do that out here, but anyway, you grown-up people in the city do.
You still do, but you do it in other ways, like
I do.
Facebook groups.
Yeah.
You know, women in business Facebook groups.
Yeah, I've got a lot of those.
Yeah, and, you know, having Zoom catch-ups, especially with COVID, with someone who has a business, or even just girlfriends, like creating like girls' night out on Zooms.
Zoom, done a couple of them.
Yeah, like they're really, and that's why I have my membership, because I want to really create this sense of female connection. And why we have the women's circles and the moon circles is, yeah, it's about the energy of the moon, and some of you might be like, that's a bit woo-woo, but really it's just about a time to reflect and let go. So, and a time to create a tribe of women that you can say, I'm having a shitty day.
I'm having a shit. The shit's out the bag now. You can keep saying it.
I'm having a shitty day. And you can just put it on Facebook, you know, in the group or the community, and people are like, you know, just,
it's
okay
there
for you.
Thank you. And it's that whole Are we being empathetic or are we problem solving? Which one do you want? And that's a really good question to ask when someone goes, I'm having a shitty day. Okay, do you want the problem solved or do you just want me to listen?
Yeah, and sometimes it could be a combination of both.
Yeah.
Because quite often when you're writing a post like that, you don't even know what you need or want.
I'm venting.
Yeah, so I think it's, I rebooted my Energy Shift Facebook group at the start of COVID last year for that sense of female connection and feeling like women had a place to be seen and heard, and positive affirmations every day and all of these kinds of things. But I mean, it's starting to come back into the physical form as well, which is nice. So I suppose it's I just make it make sure I have 1 or 2 or 3 things a month where I'm either catching up with a friend or catching up someone in my network groups, whether it's live or virtually, to maintain that sense of community, because we're really hardwired for connection.
We are. And chatting.
And female connection,
yeah,
especially in business, but not even in business, just in general, is really important. And it's one of these rituals where we talk about some of these topics and themes like menstruation or menopause or whatever it is that got lost that we still don't really talk about, but is really important.
It's weird, isn't it? So what are your tips, obviously, specifically for women across the world, smart women in business?
Well, I'm going to come back to self-care should be number one, because you won't thrive in your business if you're not thriving on the inside.
And put structure around it.
Yeah, create those healthy boundaries. And, also perhaps, doing some of that inner work a little bit too, if you do have the imposter or the guilt, mum guilt, or the taking a day off guilt, because there's something there that's blocking that. Yeah.
So important.
Yeah. And everything, as we've been saying, in life is a form of energy. So allowing yourself to do those things that will allow you to be that most high vibed, authentic self that you can be each and every day. And that usually comes down to looking after you first. So awesome. That would probably be my tips.
They'd be your tips. So how can listeners find out more about you and your work, Ilana?
All right. So I'm on social media. So Instagram and Facebook is Ilana K Kinesiology. Yes. My website is www.ilanak.com.au. My Align Living membership is on there as well. I have the Energy Shift podcast and the Energy Shift community Facebook group. But basically, if you head to my website, you'll find everything and anything that you're needing.
Brilliant. And I'll link it in the show notes. I say down there because I'll be down there. Thank you so much for your time today, Ilana.
It was my absolute pleasure.
And I'll see you soon.